It is our great privilege to introduce our esteemed guest, Mr. Shekran Menon, Chief People Administrative Officer, Subix. We welcome you, sir. Sir has been with the company since 1996, served as a global head, organization, enablement, and readiness. He is responsible for leading the key function of the people, HR, infrastructure, and the quality and process. Before moving to this role, he was the president of APEC region, where he was responsible for leading the business operation of the Asia-Pacific region of the company. With this responsibility, he's directly managed sales, delivery, solution consulting, and customer support activity in the region and has a direct responsibility for the P&L of the regional operation. He has been part of the team that lead integration activities of all M&A activity carried out by Subix. Mr. Menon is a senior leadership telecom BSS professional with over 25 years of experience. He has extensive experience in sales, business development, delivery, operation, and customer relationship management. He holds a proven track record of consistently meeting the challenge targets set by the business. People and business-oriented leader known for the highest level of a commitment and drive. This particular style has helped in attracting, retaining, and motivating the team members on an ongoing basis. Area of expertise includes M&A due diligence, post-M&A integration and transition. Setting up, scaling up, and managing the delivery organization. Building and strengthening customer relationship across geographies. Growing revenue and the profit. Building and maintaining a passionate and committed team. Cost optimization and P&L management. Responsible for the overall business operations, sales, delivery, customer support, and solution consulting of Asia-Pacific region. May I now request our honorable guest, Mr. Shekran Menon, to take the stage and address the assembled gathering. Sir, podium is all yours.
Left, right. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to address you and talk to you and share my experience. And through your questions, you will share your experience too. So I don't want to be standing here as a person. I mean, it's a long introduction. I'm not standing here to say that I have 27 years of experience and I'm going to teach you something. No. We have a lot of, I met at least about 10 of your professors and directors and deputy directors. They're all great teachers. What I'm going to talk about is what I've experienced in my work life, which I started back. So most of it, if not all of it, is going to be based on the experience. So there could be a difference between what you would have learned from a textbook, because this is all my experience. So when your director approached me and asked me whether I can join this, I was more than happy to do it. So thanks for that. So I was just thinking about, do you have any special theme that you want us to talk about? And the response was, no, you can choose your topic. So I chose this for a specific reason. I had an opportunity to interact with a similar, the directors of many other organizations. So one of the directors of an organization, he mentioned, this is a topic which is not, he did not, I haven't done a lot of research because he has done a lot of research. So he said when he did some research, he did not find a lot of white papers, a lot of discussion happening on this particular topic. And he felt this is something which all of us need to understand and get into some detail. So I thought we'll talk about it. That's point number one. And point number two is, as an organization, because I spent the lady who introduced me here said, I joined this company in 1996. And I've been fortunate enough to join this company, and I've been fortunate enough in all my 26, 27 years of experience, I had an opportunity to work with companies which had great focus on the organization culture. And as we go on with this conversation, we can speak about why that matters and how you maintain that and stuff like that. So just to talk about, when I say I'm going to talk about my experience, this is what it is. I transitioned from the campus to corporate back in 87. Joined Subex in 1996. That's about 18 years ago. It's been an exciting journey. When I joined Subex, we were tiny. We were really tiny. The whole of Subex was less than 30 people. And at our peak, back in 2008, we went to 1,200 people. So I had an opportunity to be part of an organization which moved from 30 people to 1,200 people, and same way the business too. And this is another important aspect, because in Subex, we were very, very particular about the organization cultural aspect of it. And for us, who were part of the early part of Subex, this is a key item. So we didn't want to, while we were focusing on the business and other things, we are also focused on the culture of the organization to maintain a particular culture that we wanted to. And the whole growth of Subex happened through 7 acquisitions that we have done. Why am I talking about that? This particular thing plays a critical role in the organization culture. Because when 2 organizations get together, you're basically talking about 2 organizations with 2 different cultures coming together. And unless and until you have an alignment, whatever that you want to achieve from a merger and acquisition is not going to work. So that's just about me. Like I just mentioned, these are the 2, important aspects in this whole, introduction piece. Now I was also looking at, what are the textbook definition of organization culture? Any thoughts? I don't know whether you have mics. If somebody wants to talk about what is an organization culture. So I thought, I'll just look at some of those textbook definitions. So somewhere they said organization culture is the behavior of human within an organization and the meaning that people attach to that. Right? Makes sense, right? And somebody says organization culture represents the collective values, beliefs, and principles of the organization. And the members and the factors like the product, market, the management style, and things like that. And another definition says the organization culture is a set of shared mental assumptions as you become part of an organization, which you focus on and then take it as your character or take it as your behavioral aspects. Now, these are something which is, which I could find as a textbook definition. In my view, it is very difficult to define, because it is ultimately what we all experience. If I had to talk about the culture of BITM, I think it's going to be extremely difficult for us to even talk about that, because it's a collection of the experience that you all have being part of this organization as students, as faculties, as directors, or office bearers, right? So it is something that we all need to define and then understand what we want to have as a culture, and then how do we work on that. Let's look at some of these real life situations. I have worked with, I come from the sales and the delivery background, so I've been working with customers for about 20 odd years, and that gave me an opportunity to interact with different companies. There are companies where, the boss sits there. You rarely get a chance to see your boss, unless you see them in the website or the photograph or whatever. Whereas there are some other organization where boss and the junior most employee, when I say boss, it could be a CEO. They get together for a drink, they get together for a dinner, and they move like friends. This could be a culture. Another situation could be you have an entrepreneurial situation, and we have lived through that, for example, where we say things have to happen. If you need to talk to 10 different people, get it done, just go get it done. But things have to happen. But if you go to some of the established organizations, I know I don't want to name them because I don't want any negative feeling coming around that. Successful companies, where if things have to happen, it has to go through a particular process. And I know situation of a very senior person from that organization telling me, Shekharan, look, I need this help from you. And I know for you to do this, I need to give you some commitment because it's a business. But for me to do that, it is going to take 6 days. And I can't wait for 6 days. So I'm basically asking you to bend your rules and come and help me in this particular situation. And we were able to do it. But in that organization, it is all process driven. They just can't break the process. They'll have to follow the process. Right? But that might at times come in the way of doing business. But then that organization is successful. So you can't say that that culture is not working. The other thing could be, top down. If I'm a manager, I just call my team and say, guys, just do this. There is rarely a discussion or there's rarely a communication back. Just questions, that's it. Clarification, after that the boss says, people do that. Whereas in some other organization, you will see a style of collaboration. Even the junior most member of the team could even ask questions to the manager or the manager's manager and say, what you're saying is not correct. And there could be a very collaborative discussion on the whole thing, and finally you come out with an action. Right? So that's a different style. In some organizations, it's a command and control. They say, you know what, it comes from the top, and we know what is to be done, you just follow that. In other place, they see this part of this organization. And while we are waiting, I just met with your, some of your directors and professors. We are talking about how do you create a sense of belonging in an organization? How do you create a sense of pride, when an employee joins a company? And that could be that the whole cultural aspect. And I was talking to, while I was just, doing some of this 2 weeks ago, major coincidence, one of my ex-colleagues who worked with me in 97 and 98 when I joined Subex, he lives in Delhi, he called me to check whether he has any opportunity in Subex. So I generally got into a discussion with him. I spoke to him for 20 minutes. So I asked him, why are you looking for a change? Because I know that he works for a company, an American company, which is doing well. And that company got acquired by another big company, which is again a successful company. So I was just wondering, as to why does he want to make a change now? So his point is, he's a sales guy. He works as a sales manager or sales director or whatever. So he says, in my earlier company, I was able to make a decision to go and sell something on a price decision or whatever. It used to take only 2 days. But this larger company coming and acquiring us, I can't even talk to anybody. I can only put my request on an email or a system or whatever. And this goes to, I don't even know where does it go. Maybe it goes to somebody who sits in China or somebody who sits in US, somebody sits in Europe. And that somebody has an SLA. And that somebody needs to come back to me in 5 days of time. So for that 5 days of time, I can't take a decision. Now I can't go back to my customer and say, you know what, I need 5 more days because there is somebody else who is willing to do that business, close that business in 3 days of time. Now if you look at this bigger company, that bigger company is very successful. Again, I'm not naming the company. And that's working well for them. That's the reason they're practicing it. But this guy, he was so used to the other culture for about 10 years, he's not able to align with that. So it is not to say that a particular culture is incorrect. It is all about how can you as an individual align with a particular culture. Right? I just move this and use this thing. It is a little loose. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, sir. Can I? Yeah, sorry. So it's all about how do we align with a particular culture. Am I audible? So I'm not saying that, either one of this is wrong or either one is bad or what. And in some places you see more of a collaboration, the other side, it is more of a command and control culture. Let's now look at what are things which influence the culture. The culture could be influenced by many things, right? It could be influenced by how, if I'm a manager of an organization, how I behave. In my company, the Subex was started by 2 individuals. And Subhash Menon, who was the CEO until 2 years ago, he was the promoter and the CEO. It basically drives around how he believes, what he believes is the culture of an organization. So if he thinks it is going to be like I just order, you do things because I started a company, I know what to do. You're all employees, you do it, that becomes culture. If he thinks it should be the other way, where I want a collaborative approach, I've hired some people who I think can add value to the business, and they have ideas and they have thoughts, and that needs to be shared, that becomes a collaborative culture. If he thinks there should be a common friendship culture, that becomes a culture. If he thinks, no, I don't want to even talk to somebody who's just 20 years old, 23 years old, just an engineer out of a college, that becomes a culture. And what is the management style? What is the style of the people? Are they open enough? Are you giving them an opportunity to open up? That decides the culture, right? So there are multiple aspects which drives the culture of an organization. It could be the people, and how are you able to align this culture with other people? For example, in our organization, whenever somebody joins, we spend at least 2 days and 2 full days inducting these people, and a major focus area is organization culture. Because it is possible that these people are coming from a different organization, which might have a completely different culture, and we should be able to explain to them, make them understand that's what the culture that we believe in, and help them understand what is the difference and how should they be doing it. Otherwise, what could happen is, for example, if I have a new employee coming in from a company where the employee can't even meet their manager, he or she would think that's a culture across. And when he comes to Subex, or she comes to Subex, thanks. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yeah. So when somebody comes from a new organization, it is important for us to help them understand what the culture of this organization is and how he or she should be aligned with. Again, another example, I heard about a situation, one of my distant relative, much younger guy. So he just passed out of college, he worked for a company. He worked for a company for about 14 months. He got another offer. He joined that company, worked for about 14, 15 months. Then he called me, and he was in the same city. He was in Pune. One evening he called me and said, look, I want to talk to you. I said, what happened? He said, I'm thinking of changing my job. I said, okay. And the discussion went on. So his point was, he got another offer which is much more attractive. And I've told him, look, you don't change job every 15 months, right? So you should go back and talk to your manager and explain the situation to them and see what the manager can do for you, so that for a small reason you don't leave the job and just go and change. Now the focus matters. When I told him this, he said, okay, I'll go back and talk to my manager. He could not see his manager for 1 week. And he came and told me, after 5 days or 6 days, I generally called him and asked him what happened. He said, you know what, I couldn't talk to my manager. And he tells me that I have told my manager, I sent him an email saying that I want to talk to you. And he also mentioned that I have a problem. And this manager was not able to find time to meet this guy for 5 days or 6 days. To me, it was a shocking. Because what I told him, if that was to happen in Subex, I'm just talking about, I'm not trying to say, that company is good or bad or whatever. I was just thinking, if that was to happen in Subex, that manager would have lost his job immediately. Because we think and we educate people, we keep telling people that as manager, this is part of your responsibility too. But this particular company, again, they're doing well. But a particular aspect of the culture came in like this. So this person knew that going and talking to a manager was not something I can do easily. I have to go through the process of setting up an appointment, going and meeting, finding the time that works for him or her, and do that. And finally, the end result, you might lose an employee. You might lose somebody. So that's the culture that we are talking about. So these are the things which influences the culture of an organization. Right? So, once again, it is not about saying what is right or what is wrong. It all depends on what you think is the right culture. Right? End of the day, it is for us to think as what is right and what is wrong. What is right for you may not be right for me. What is right for me may not be right for you. But then for the organization, it is to decide what is the culture that we want to promote. And then making sure that as an organization, the leadership team puts enough focus and effort to make sure that that culture is maintained and any new person who is becoming part of an organization is aligned with that particular culture. Why is it important? Any thoughts? I know you don't have mics, but I don't want this to be just a one-way communication. After some time, maybe 1 o'clock, it's 1:15, you might fall asleep also, maybe hungry, sleepy. But why do you think it's important? Think of this. When I join a company, for example, let's rewind back to 96. When I came into Subex, I come with certain assumptions, right? And my assumption is largely and hugely influenced by what I've experienced in my past. Now, when a new person comes in, any one of you go and join a company, what do you go with? You haven't experienced a corporate. You just came from the campus. You go with certain assumptions. Now, you go with that assumption and you start watching people. Now, when you start watching people, you see some behavior there. And these assumptions and beliefs drive the behavior. If you think this is an organization where I can go and talk to people freely, it doesn't matter whether I'm just out of college, I can go and talk to any senior member of this organization. If you think that, and if you see that, you start doing it. If you don't see that, you're a little unsure. Then you just wait and watch and see how other people are doing it. And then when you do that, that particular behavior drives the results. Because if I think I can do anything, I have the freedom to innovate, I have the freedom to try out things, it doesn't matter even if I fail, then what you do is you start doing things. And when you try and do things new things, that is when you will probably try something new, come up with something new. For example, our company, again, I can just talk about my own example. Subex is a software product company. Right? I know how many of you know this. So we are not into just software services, we try and come up with new products. It is not necessary that all the products that we come out with are going to be a success at the first time. Maybe we can make it a success, that's a different story. But then the first time, it may not be necessary that it's going to be a success. Maybe a technology that we pick up may not be the greatest of the technology. So unless and until we give the freedom for people to innovate or the freedom for people to try out things, nobody will do that. Because they want to be safe, they will say as a manager, you tell me what technology to try with, I'll try that technology. So that will impact your performance. So you need to give that freedom for people to innovate, freedom for people to try out things, and that is what is going to drive your business. So finally, whatever comes out as a result, and result is what the performance is. End of the day, if you do well, that's what will bring you business. If you don't, then after some time it will just collapse. So finally, you need to basically focus on the culture with a view that ultimately this is what is going to drive your business, this is what is going to decide your performance, this is what is going to decide your success as an organization. How do you want me to do this? I mean, I'm not used to a one-way communication, because I get confused whether it's coming out interesting, or you find it boring, or you agree with me, you disagree with me. Like I said, when I came in here, I did not come with an intention saying that I'm going to speak for 1 hour, you will just listen to me and then after that I'll go. No. I would share my experience, and if any one of you think what I'm saying is not making sense, I would like to hear that, because that's when the discussion happened, that's when the value add happens. Otherwise, I can just speak for this and then just go out. Something will work, something will not work, and then you spend 3 days, it's over. So how do you want me to do it? Do you want me to just continue with this and then wait for your questions, or do you want me to pause in between and ask questions? Continue? I'll continue. So what I also did as part of this, again, I can call this research as part of my preparation for this. I try to understand what are the different examples of a culture, right? I'll get to the next point. That's the most interesting thing. So I found this, this is just an example. I mean, you can take it as, this is the only thing, right? This is a model defined by 2 professors from University of Michigan. So they're talking about 4 different variations, 4 different buckets. One, they say the clan is a family culture, you say, you're all part of a family, we get together and we make it work and all of that stuff. So there, you can do some mistakes, the tolerance level is high, don't worry about all of this issue. The other one is, we just spoke about autocracy. It's dynamic, entrepreneurial, try out things, you want results to be happening faster, we can't wait, process is fine, but then, if process is coming a way of doing business, throw it out and get stuff done. The result oriented, you have an eye on the market, you want to be successful. When I say successful, even the slightest of the failure is not acceptable. You want all success happening, and you have to be the best. And hierarchical, very structured, very process oriented. Somebody from the top will say something, you just follow that. Now I have a slide coming up later, so when it comes to that, it will become a redundancy, so I'll just talk about it now because it's relevant. When I did this, I tried to plot this and see where does Subex fall in. And to be very honest with you, I found Subex is all over the place, except for this, the last one here. We said we are yet to be there, but then other 3, I found we are somewhere in between. So that is when I thought I'll just talk about what is that we practice and what is that I think is the culture of our organization. If that is going to help you to get a flavor of what is giving me this all energy to talk about it. Now, let's for a minute assume that we started a company, there is a company there, there is a culture and culture is maintained and managed and all of that. What are the other things which will influence the culture? One could be an M&A, right? Sorry, let's start from the leadership style. There could be a leadership style where the leader is very supportive, encouraging, helping, and all of that, right? There could be other one, as you can see on the right hand side of the picture, it is all yelling. So people are even scared to even talk to their managers. If the manager doesn't call me, I'm happy. The moment my phone rings and I say it's my manager, oh man, I don't want to even talk to him. I don't know what to expect now. So if I can continue my 5 days in a week or 6 days in a week, depending on the company that I work with, without seeing my manager, it's a great week done. So that's a style difference. Mergers and acquisition, that's another aspect. I can speak for our company. We acquired 7 companies in 7 years. And interestingly, all the 7 companies are outside of India, right? So these are companies who practice a particular culture. These are companies who had a different style of working compared to Subex. And when we get together, you have to align with the culture. You have to see what is the culture that you want to promote. And that is going to change the culture. And scale. Again, I can speak from my Subex experience and example. When we were only 30 people, it was very easy. Extremely easy for us to, manage a particular culture and say this is a culture and promote that culture. When we move from 30 to 100, it becomes slightly difficult. In 2004 or 2006, we suddenly moved from 400 people to 800 people because that's when we went and acquired a big company, which is of almost our size. So overnight, Subex has become a company from 400 people to an 800 people. It became completely difficult for us to do that. So the scale adds to the complexity of the alignment, right? So have some more details of it. Let's look at how each of this matters. See, these are different styles of leadership. Now, all of this will drive a particular culture. Now, think of the situation. Here's a company where there's a great family-oriented culture and people are all well connected. There is no hierarchy. Doesn't matter who's a CEO, who's an engineer, who's a manager. They all have a great friendship. They get together, have a drink together, have dinner together and all of that. And suddenly the CEO changes. Let's say another CEO comes who does not believe in all of this. What happens? There's a complete shift in the culture. And when the CEO wants to do that, and when the CEO thinks that is the way to work, doesn't matter who tries, nothing will happen. So overnight, you will see a complete shift in the culture. Now the CEO say, I am the CEO. Things will happen the way I want. And I don't want any discussion, all of this. The order comes, you obey, and then go and do that. Do you see that shift in the culture happening? So it will completely shift the culture. So the leadership change is a critical influencer. And I can give you my example. In Subex, we had this. In 2012, we had a new CEO coming in. But the good thing is, he spent a lot of time talking to all of us who have been part of this organization for a long time, trying to understand what the culture of the Subex, culture of the organization is. So he made sure that, and his focus area was to make sure that the culture is not impacted at all. So initial 2 to 3 months of time, he spent a lot of time talking to us. And I would have spent about 6 hours of discussion with him in the first 3 months, trying to explain what I felt is a culture, what I felt is good, what I felt is not so good, to make sure that he does not disturb that culture. Now, if this was not to happen, what would have happened is somebody else will come and say, I don't care what the culture is. For me, this is the culture which is going to work, so I'm going to put that culture in place. And that could be anything. So that will again disturb the whole culture. In M&A, like I said, even if you talk about 2 companies in India getting together, I just gave you the example of the company that I spoke about where my relative was working, where he couldn't meet the manager. Now think of the situation of that company and Subex getting together. We are talking about completely, diametrically opposite 2 cultures getting together. Now if you take that to the next level and say one company from UK and one company from India getting together, it is not only the working style difference, it is also the regional cultural difference that comes in play. For example, in India, we are all used to follow. If I tell you something, suppose you are working with me and I want you to do something, and we agree that it will be done by Wednesday. In India, it is okay for me to come and ask you this question, have you done this on Wednesday? But if you go to the Western world, they're not okay with that. They said, you have told me something, I have told you that I'll do it on Wednesday, so why are you coming and asking me this question before Wednesday? Now that's a cultural difference. Now, if these 2 companies get together, these 2 cultures get together, how do you align it? So it is important for you to even understand what is the working style difference and what works and what doesn't work. So the M&A brings in a completely different dimension to the culture. Because people come from different working style, then other thing, I just go to the next slide quickly. These are some of the challenges. For example, when we go and acquire a company, in some situation it could also be that that company is not doing so well, and we are acquiring that company with an expectation that we will turn that company around. When I'm doing that, it is possible for me to get a feeling that, that company is not doing well, I'm successful. That means whatever they are doing is right and whatever they are doing is wrong. So I come with a very focused approach saying that whatever that company is going to do is wrong. I'm going to force my culture on them, immaterial of what they do. I go with the preconceived notion. Right? The second thing, in an acquisition, as you see in the first picture, 2 companies getting together. One company thinks, it's a merger. The other guy says, who said it's a merger? It's an acquisition. I'm going to buy you, I'm going to decide what is to be done, and that will be done. Right? And people find it extremely difficult to go with an open mind. They just say, I'm acquiring you, I want things to be in my way. Right? That's a very narrow focused approach, but then that happens. And some people have the inability to even do that. I mean, they want to do it, but then they're so used to a particular style of working and they don't want to change. And unless and until we put extra effort on that, there's no way you're going to accept it. And think of a situation, in Subex again, what are companies that we acquired, except for the last acquisition that we have done in 2007, all the other companies were our competitors. So, till that time, you had that competing spirit. When you acquire this company or when you merge with the company, you need to move from the competitive spirit to a collaborative spirit. If you continue with the competitive spirit, you go the same feeling saying that what I am doing is right, what you are doing is wrong. Let's get the things done in my way. No more discussion, no more collaboration. You either shape up or ship out. So these are the challenges which will come in the way of M&A or a collaboration. Think of the situation. I'm talking about growth. Let's assume that this is a growth of a company. Now it's a startup age, right? I mean, you keep reading about startup, the Flipkarts and the Snapdeals and the, what are the other company? I keep forgetting the name. There's an interesting acquisition that happened. Facebook acquired a company for $19 million from Bangalore. Sorry? No. No, this is a small company out of Bangalore. This is an acquisition for 19 million, not billion. Anyway, because I happen to know that one of the promoters of that company through a colleague of mine, that's a small company, right? But suddenly they become part of WhatsApp. Oh, sorry, Facebook. Or even in Subex, we went through this. Like I said, when I joined this company, we were like 30 people. Then 30, we went to 100. We managed. And one particular fine morning, we moved from 400 to 800 people. Now, the issue is, when you go to this particular stage, communication. How do I communicate? Earlier, it was easy for me to just walk around and talk to 30 people and say, this is what we want to do. From there, everybody is in one office. It's only a 1,200 square feet office. From there, you suddenly see that you have 5 different offices in 5 different parts of the globe. And people who speak in a completely different way. For example, in one point in time, we had 8 people in China. Think of this. We had 8 people in China, about 500, 600 people in India, a few people in London, a few people in US. Completely different culture, completely different time zone, completely different way of communication, and the accent problems and whatnot. So the ease of communication of going to one room and one small room and then getting everybody together and then communicating things has completely changed. Now you need to find out new ways of doing it. The process part. In a smaller organization, we can just talk to 5 different people and get stuff done. But when you move from that, think about IBM, because IBM is respected for their process strength, right? How do they make it work? They're all over the place, right? They're a big global company. They're all over the place. And whenever I speak to anybody from IBM, anybody working with IBM here, friends, relatives who had an experience or an opportunity to understand about IBM? I just give you an example. Even after talking to people from IBM for about last 4 years, I still haven't understood their structure. That complex that is. But they make things work beautifully well. Why? The process. So, as a small company, you can do things by calling people and getting stuff done. But as you grow up in size, you need to have some process. So when the process comes in, even that brings in a change in your culture. Because earlier I was okay to call up somebody and say, you know what, I just want this to be done. Can you just send me the price, get it done over the phone, I'm done. But now I need to move to the process-driven thing where I have to send it to 5 different people. They have to get together, agree on something and come back. That's a shift in the culture. And general connect. I firmly believe in creating sense of belonging for the people. Now, that becomes very, very easy if there are only 35 people in an organization. How do I create sense of belonging even for 800 people? That's my challenge today. We are only 850 people. How do I create that sense of belonging for 850 people? Let alone, the cases of Infosys or Wipro who talks about hundreds of thousands of people. So that becomes different. So you need to think about how do I maintain this connect with all the people as we grow bigger. If you don't do that, again you have a cultural misalignment, or you might even lose the culture that you felt was a great culture that we enjoyed. So this is a slide I was talking about. And Subex, we do certain things, and this worked very well for us. We keep telling everybody, time and again, that we have an organization which should be flat, which is flat, and the levels and designations and hierarchies are only for a particular purpose. For example, we can't have everybody sitting and coding, right? You need somebody to do the management part, you need somebody to do HR, you need somebody to do sales. So we keep saying that we have this designation only for that. If anybody wants to walk into the CEO's office, he can just walk into the CEO's office and talk to him. And I'll just give you one example, just to give you a feel of it. I felt so great about 4 weeks or 5 weeks ago, 2 of my junior engineers, when I say junior engineer, they're just 1 year out of college. They walked into my room just after about 2 in the afternoon. They came and asked me, can we speak to you for 10 minutes? And they came and spoke to me about some certification, something that they wanted, because as part of my current responsibility, I also handle learning and development. So they came and spoke to me, we spent 15 minutes, they wanted something, we had a discussion, I said, we'll look at that. What I liked about it is, these 2 engineers two lady engineers, they did not find it difficult, they did not find it big thing to come and talk to me. And I felt that's important. Because that is what we as an organization wanted to maintain, even when we go to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people. So if you're able to maintain that, we are reasonably successful. Agility, we say we just can't wait and wait and wait for things to happen. We want things to happen now. Because if we are on I heard the gentleman before me talking about the customer orientation. All of us as an organization, we need to be serving our customer. We need to be customer oriented. So when the customer needs something, I can't go back to the customer and say, customer, you know what? My process will take 7 days of time. I'll come back to you after 7 days. Customer will not come back to you again. So you need to be agile. You need to be fast enough to make sure that the customer does not have a long wait. And we try to maintain that, and we try to keep reminding ourselves saying that even if we grow bigger, we should not lose that agility. Sense of belonging. Again, I just sharing some thoughts with your professors just before I came in here. Until about 3 years ago, we used to brag about the lowest attrition in the IT industry. When everybody was struggling, when I say everybody, the whole IT industry was struggling with about 2-digit attrition, in Subex we had single-digit attrition. And if you ask me, what helped us is we were able to create that sense of belonging among people. So it is not just the salary, it is not just the money which mattered. They all felt good about being part of the organization. They all felt that they are owners of the organization. So we created that, and in my experience, let me tell you, it's not only Subex. In all the companies that I have worked, this goes a long way. In my very first job, I used to deal with people who are not permanent employees of the company. Except me, all of the people who used to work with me are technicians, were technicians, and none of them were permanent employees. So they just come for a project, they do the project for 8 months, 9 months, 10 months, and they go out. So it is a challenge for me to make them work because they don't have anything long term, right? They don't have any growth. You can't show them the career progression and all of that. What are the management thing that we speak about in terms of retaining people? You can't do any one of those. So what I tried doing, which worked well for me, is I tried to create that sense of belonging in them. And it worked so well. To give you one example, one Sunday evening, my customer came and told me, look, Shekharan, there is an urgent need of something to be done. Can you get somebody to go and do this job? All I had to do was just go and call one of my technicians and tell him this is what the customer needs, can you just go and do it? And he just went and did that. And he came back at 1 o'clock in the night and told me it's done. I didn't have to, Sunday evening, the only day they get off. I didn't have to go and request him, I didn't have to go and tell him multiple times. Just one communication, he just went and did that. And when I think about it, he felt he is also equally responsible for that. He did not think that as manager it's only my responsibility, he felt he is also equally responsible for that. And to me, that is part of the sense of belonging. Result oriented, we have to be. Without result, we can't survive. We are very competitive. This is the reason I said, if you recall my earlier slide, it spoke about, I'll just quickly go back to that. This is where I said, it speaks about in some corners it talks about result orientation, in some corners they talk about dynamic, in some corners they talk about the family thing. When I look at Subex, we are part of all of this. So we basically say, even one deal lost, it's a big discussion, it is not taken lightly, we just go back and have conversation to understand why did we lose this. Because we all know that in sales, in business, you can't have a situation of 100% winning. Even then, a failure is not something which is easily accepted. And we have an approach and we have an attitude. I can tell you that most of us practice that, we don't give up so easily. There were many cases where we lost the business, where the customer came back and said, sorry, you're not getting the business. We did not give it up. We went back, we tried, 6 months later, 8 months later, we won the business. And we maintained that part. And lower power distance. Do anybody have a thought on what is power distance? Sorry, any thought? See, in this kind of discussion, there is no wrong answer. All answers are right. So the power distance is basically, you have the CEO, you have the COO, you have the vice president, you have the engineer and all that. So the distance. Yeah, it amounts to flat. It amounts to the flat organization, but it's also the same thing that I spoke about. How comfortable a junior person going and interacting with a senior person. Honestly, we didn't think of this. To be very honest, we didn't think of this. We were told by a consultant who came and spent some time with us and said, you're a company where there's no power distance at all. Because he felt somebody junior, one of the incidents that he quoted was, one very junior person was openly making fun of our CEO in a friendly manner. And the CEO did not react badly. CEO just laughed at it and then he said, this is a great thing. So that creates a whole environment. And when I talk to people, as part of my current job, I spend a lot of time talking to people to understand how they feel, because in software industry it's very difficult to predict the mood of people, right? It changes almost every day. So we keep talking to people to understand whether the mood remains the same or they keep changing. So there, we understand that this is something everybody enjoys. So even when people leave, they might have other reasons, but they say this is something we enjoy. And we just maintain that. At the end of the day, you don't have to go back to a situation saying that I am the boss and you listen to me. We all need to work together for a common objective. Am I okay on time? Now I just want to share this with you. I think this is my last slide. So we went through all of these stages. So I spoke about multiple stages that can influence the organization culture, right? So we went through the mergers and acquisition, we went through the scale, and we also had, like I mentioned, we had the leadership change. So how did we manage that? In all the mergers and acquisition, the integration team, again, we did not have a big integration team. We were only like 4 of us doing the integration part. In all the cases, we were very clear that organization cultural alignment was a key thing. So we kept checking. For example, when we did this 2006 acquisition, because I talk about it a little more because that was the biggest acquisition that we have done. In 2006, Subex had a revenue of $50 million, and Subex had about 400 people. We went and acquired a company of our size from UK, which also had the revenue of $50 million, almost same number of people, paying $130 million. So that is a big thing. So at times we thought we picked up something which we couldn't handle. So we were very focused on managing that particular situation. So I went to UK multiple times only to meet people, only to go and talk to people and make sure that they're feeling good. We try and understand what is bothering them and then how do we address that. So organization cultural alignment was a great thing. For example, one of the employees, when this happened in 2006, when I went and met people in smaller group, somebody asked me point blank on my face on UK National, why should I work for this company? Now it's become an Indian company, the Indian culture and all of that. That's the way he looked at it. He said, why should I work for this company? And instead of reacting to that, I just laughed at him. I just smiled at him. I said, okay, we'll talk about it. We managed it. And the good thing as an organization is that guy continues to be part of Subex, even after 8 years. He's still happy as Subexian. So we were focused on the cultural aspects and we knew that this is something we need to focus on. We approached with an open mind. We never ever had a heavy-handed approach saying that, we are coming and acquiring this company, so you will align with me. We tried to understand. We always looked at what is good in you and can we take some of these good things so that we can, get a blended thing. So we have best of both worlds and try to do something so that people could see that we are not just coming on a one-way side, on a one-way track, we are doing on both sides. Executive leadership team alignment. As you all know, when the situation that, for example, when we went and acquired this company called Azure, till that time we had a 4-member executive leadership team, which became 6, which means 2 people from Azure become part of this team. So what we make sure that at least the 6 people there's a common alignment. So when we made sure that alignment is there, it was much easier for us to go down to the next level because then they also listen some of their old bosses talking about the same thing and the advantage of that. So we made sure that there's an alignment between all of us. Working closely with people, I just mentioned that we have made trips only to go talk to people. We used to spend weeks after weeks to just go meet people in smaller group, one-on-one, large group town hall meeting, talk to them, understand what their issues are, and try and address those issues to make sure that they're comfortable. And of course, when we say that this culture is working, for example, when I say that the power distance is 0 in SUBEX, it is important for us to demonstrate the benefit of that. Otherwise, they'll say, okay, what's the point? How is it working? So it's important for us to show that it is helping us, it is adding value to our business. Growth, we spoke about that, it is considered as an important aspect, even when we grew from 30 to 1,200 people. And we also make sure that the managers are oriented, because it's very difficult. We just, 4 of us can't go and talk to all 1,200 people and make their alignment. So you need that extended team. So we made sure that all our managers, the first level, entry level managers and the next level managers, they buy into this particular thought process, they're aligned with this, and they're also able to go back and do the same thing. So that whatever that we were trying to do, they do the same thing. So you have an extended group of people doing the same thing. Constant communication, even today, from an HR point of view, communication is one of the key items for us. So we even measure to see how many, we have drawn up a calendar in the beginning of the year. Every year we do that, and we see whether we are executing on that communication calendar. And of course, it is generic, right? It doesn't matter if it's only on the culture part or anything. Whatever that you preach, better practice it. If you can't practice something, don't preach about it, because there's no point in saying something and then, practicing something else. So, how do you summarize this? Can I ask one of you to summarize this, if this is useful? I'll do that. Do you agree with this? This is definitely lower in volume than the good afternoon. That means some of you don't agree. Anybody who doesn't agree with this? Nobody? That's the easier way to get out of this, right? This has to be a focus area for the leadership team, because it is not going to be done by other people. The leadership team will have to be focused on making sure that the culture is maintained. Whatever be the culture, but that has to be maintained. It is not largely, it is always top down. A junior most engineer or a junior most member of the team can't drive a culture. It normally comes from the top. So it is important for the people on the top understand that, and they spend time on that. In bigger organization, you can have a different culture within function. For example, I'm sure IBM might have IBM culture, and if you go to a smaller function or a sub-function, you will see a different culture. But then you will see an alignment between the big culture and this individual team culture. It can't be completely different. Because that also depends on, for example, in an HR team in SUBEX, you might see a slightly different culture as respect to the finance team culture. But then you see some kind of an alignment to the overall culture of the organization. We spoke about that. Changes or the influences of the culture are M&A, the leadership style change, or the growth. And this is something we are seeing on a regular basis, on a day-to-day basis. This organization culture, because many people, especially in the senior level, when I say senior level, excluding the junior level, somebody just out of college, they don't care about the culture so much. But after a particular point in time, people talk a lot about culture than the salary. When I try and interview people for the manager position, senior position, they have a lot more questions about what do we think our culture is, how do we manage. They talk to other people to understand what their feeling about the culture is. So for them, salary is an important aspect, but then salary is not the only thing. They want to understand what the culture is. And that is what is going to help organization to retain people. So it is not only to attract, it's also to retain people and talent. Because that is going to decide the success of the organization. And in my experience, I don't think we can say that this culture is great and this culture is not so great. So this is good, this is bad. I know many successful companies who follow a particular culture which I personally can't agree with, but they are successful. In some places, for example, I just telling again as part of my conversation, this is what I felt. And I had a similar experience about 4 weeks ago. I came to another city where one other college invited me for a similar session. So what I told them is, I'm telling you the same thing. I felt completely different because I come from a sales, delivery and all of this background where whatever travel that I made, most of the time my travels had to go and meet my customer. So when I go and meet my customers, right, it is like I get out of the airport, I take a taxi or something, I go to the place and meet them. And in my organization, even the junior most member of the team who just came out of the college, he calls me by name. But when I came in here, even when these two batchmates of yours or classmates of yours, they send me a mail, sir, welcome to Pune. It is all sir, 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 sir. Right? All throughout sir. If you really ask me, and I told somebody here, somebody who's very senior to me also, one of your professors, I told him, please call me by name. Don't call me sir. I feel uneasy when you call me sir. But I've seen organizations where calling somebody by name is just not acceptable. If a manager goes and talks to a senior manager, he has to call that person sir. Now that's a cultural difference. That is something which I personally don't think is a great thing. But that's working well for them. So I don't think we can just put a point and say, okay, this is something which is great and this is not a great culture to be in. It is important for the organization to understand what culture will work for us and make sure that they maintain it. Okay? And that's my last slide.